3 days had passed since the Queen's letter arrived, and the cream-colored pages had been read and reread multiple times. They sat on Harry's desk in his home office, weighted down by a paperweight that had belonged to his mother. Each time he walked past, he found himself glancing at the careful handwriting, remembering the grandmother who had taught him to write thank-you notes in that same precise script. Meghan found herself thinking about the letter at unexpected moments, while making breakfast, during Lilibet's afternoon nap, and especially in the quiet evening hours when the children were asleep. The Queen's words had stirred something in her that she hadn't anticipated, a longing for her daughter to know her extended family, complicated as that family might be. On Saturday morning, as coastal fog rolled in from the Pacific, Harry made a decision. He found Meghan in the garden, where she was teaching Lilibet the names of flowers while Archie kicked a soccer ball nearby. "I think we should respond," he said without preamble, settling on the grass beside them. Meghan looked up from where she was helping Lilibet smell a rose. "I've been thinking the same thing," she admitted. "She's not getting any younger, and—" She paused, watching their daughters wonder at discovering a butterfly among the flowers. "Lilibet deserves to know her great-grandmother." "Not just know about her," Harry added. "Actually know her. The woman who wrote that letter isn't the Queen from the balcony or the official portraits. She's the grandmother who used to let me eat biscuits before dinner and who taught me to recognize different bird calls in the Windsor Gardens." That afternoon, while the children napped, they sat down together to craft their response. It took several drafts to find the right tone, acknowledging the distance that had grown between them while expressing genuine appreciation for the Queen's gesture. "We should include photos," Meghan suggested as Harry typed on his laptop. She asked about Lilibet's first words and whether she likes music. "We could show her instead of just telling her." Harry smiled, remembering his grandmother's love of visual storytelling. Throughout his childhood, she had kept detailed photo albums of family moments, from formal occasions to candid shots of grandchildren playing in puddles. They selected pictures carefully, Lilibet taking her first steps in their garden, laughing at bubbles during bath time, and one particularly precious image of her reading a book to her stuffed animals. There was a video of her dancing to music while Archie played guitar, her chubby legs moving with surprising rhythm. "Look at this one," Meghan said, showing Harry a photo from the previous week. Lilibet was wearing a sun hat that was slightly too big, sitting among flowers with dirt on her hands and a proud smile on her face. "She looks just like you did at that age in some of the photos Diana used to show me." As they wrote, both Harry and Meghan found themselves opening up about feelings they had kept carefully guarded. The letter wasn't just a response to the Queen, it became a bridge between the past they had left behind and the future they were building. "We want you to know that we read your letter to Lilibet," they wrote. "She seemed to understand its importance, even though she's too young to comprehend the words. She held it gently and made sounds that we choose to believe meant she was pleased to hear from her gone. They told the Queen about Lilibet's personality, how she was fearless like her father had been, climbing everything she could reach, but also gentle like her brother, carefully petting their rescue chickens and sharing her snacks with the family dogs. They described her laugh, which could fill a room with joy, and her curiosity about everything from insects to airplanes. "She loves books already," Meghan added to the letter. "She brings them to us constantly, wanting to hear the stories. Her favorite is about a little elephant who learns to be brave. We think you would enjoy reading to her." The most difficult part to write was the acknowledgement of the distance between them and the hope that it might begin to close. Harry struggled with the words, wanting to express his love for his grandmother without reopening wounds that were still healing. "We know that things have been complicated," they finally wrote. "We've all said and done things that we wish we could handle differently. But watching Lilibet grow has reminded us that life is short, and family is precious. We don't want our differences to rob her of knowing the remarkable woman who has been such an important part of our lives." They extended an invitation for a video call, suggesting that modern technology might help bridge the physical distance between California and England. "Lilibet is naturally chatty," they wrote. "She might not say much that you can understand yet, but we think she would love to see your face and hear your voice." As they prepared to send the response, along with carefully selected photos and the video of Lilibet dancing, Harry felt something shift inside him. The anger and hurt that had dominated his feelings about his family for so long was still there, but it was joined now by something else, hope. "Do you think this will change things?" Meghan asked as they attached the final photo to their email. Harry considered the question while watching Lilibet toddle around their living room, babbling to herself in the confident way of toddlers who believe they're having important conversations. "I don't know if it will change everything," he said finally. "But maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe it just needs to change some things. Maybe it's enough that Lilibet will grow up knowing she has a great-grandmother who loves her, even if the rest of us are still figuring things out." The email was sent that evening, carrying across the digital divide what the Queen's letter had carried across the physical one: love, hope, and the belief that family bonds could survive even the greatest storms. Within hours, a response came back, brief but heartfelt: "Thank you. She is beautiful and clearly beloved. I would treasure the opportunity to speak with her, and with all of you. With love, Granny." 2 days later, they arranged their first video call. The Queen appeared on their laptop screen sitting in what Harry recognized as the Oak Room at Windsor, with late afternoon sunlight streaming through the ancient windows behind her. She wore a simple cardigan and pearls, looking more like any grandmother excited to meet her great-grandchild than the formal monarch the world usually saw. "Hello, my darling," she said softly when Lilibet appeared on camera, the little girl initially shy but quickly warming to the gentle voice and kind eyes on the screen. Lilibet pointed at the screen and said quite clearly, "Gone," then broke into the brilliant smile that had charmed everyone who met her. The Queen's face lit up with pure joy, years of protocol and formality melting away in the presence of a 2-year-old's unconditional affection. "Yes, my dear one," the Queen said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm your Gone, and I've been waiting such a long time to meet you properly." As the call continued, with Lilibet showing off her toys and Archie joining to say hello to his great-grandmother, Harry and Meghan watched something beautiful unfold. It wasn't the healing of all wounds or the resolution of all differences, but it was a beginning. It was proof that love could find a way across oceans and, through conflicts, carried on the innocent joy of a little girl who knew nothing of royal drama but everything about opening her heart to someone who clearly adored her. The Queen asked about their lives in California, genuinely interested in their daily routines and the children's development. She shared stories about the castle's newest corgi puppies and promised to show Lilibet the horses in the Windsor stables during their next call. When the call ended, with promises to speak again soon, the silence that followed felt different from the distant quiet that had characterized their relationship with the royal family for so long. It felt like the beginning of something new, something built on the foundation that only grandparents and grandchildren can create together: pure, uncomplicated love. That night, as Harry and Meghan tucked their children into bed, Lilibet surprised them by asking, "Gone," in a questioning tone, as if she was wondering when she might see that kind face again. "Yes, sweetheart," Meghan said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Gone loves you very much, and you'll see her again soon." The Queen's letter had done what years of diplomacy and formal communications couldn't accomplish. It had reminded them all that beneath the titles and the drama and the hurt feelings, they were simply a family who loved each other. Sometimes, it just took the wisdom of a great-grandmother and the innocence of a great-grandchild to show everyone else the way home. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as Queen Elizabeth sat at her antique writing desk. Her weathered hands trembled slightly as she picked up her favorite fountain pen, the same one she had used to sign countless official documents throughout her reign. Today, however, she wasn't writing state papers or royal proclamations. Today, she was writing something far more personal. The Queen's private secretary had just delivered the morning briefings, but her mind wasn't on matters of state. Instead, she found herself thinking about a little girl thousands of miles away in California. A little girl who carried the name of her beloved late daughter-in-law, Diana, and who shared her own childhood nickname, Lilibet. Princess Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor had just celebrated her 2nd birthday, and the Queen had seen only a handful of photographs of her youngest great-grandchild. The distance between Windsor and Montecito felt like an ocean of missed opportunities and unspoken words. The California sun was setting over the hills of Montecito, casting a golden glow through the windows of Harry and Meghan's home. Meghan sat on the floor of the living room, watching as 2-year-old Lilibet played with her blocks, building towers only to knock them down with delighted squeals of laughter. Archie was upstairs finishing his homework, and Harry was in his office taking a call about his upcoming charity polo match. The house felt peaceful in these evening hours, a sanctuary where they could simply be a family without the weight of public scrutiny or royal expectations. Meghan treasured these quiet moments, so different from the carefully scheduled and protocol-heavy life they had left behind in England. The sound of the front gate buzzer interrupted her thoughts. Their security team would handle any deliveries or visitors, but, moments later, one of their protection officers appeared in the doorway, holding an official-looking envelope with international postage. "Ma'am, this arrived through diplomatic channels," he said respectfully. "It's marked personal and confidential." Meghan's heart skipped slightly as she recognized the familiar handwriting on the envelope. The return address simply read Windsor Castle, but she knew that careful script belonged to the Queen. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the envelope, her mind racing through possibilities. Official correspondence usually came through different channels. This felt personal. "Thank you," she said quietly, waiting until the officer had left before calling upstairs. "Harry, could you come down for a moment?" Harry appeared within minutes, immediately noticing the tension in Meghan's posture and the envelope in her hands. His expression grew serious as he recognized the royal seal and his grandmother's handwriting. "Is it addressed to us?" he asked, settling beside Meghan on the couch while keeping one eye on Lilibet, who continued playing, blissfully unaware of the moment unfolding around her. Meghan turned the envelope over, and they both saw the carefully written address, Princess Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. Below it, in smaller script, it read, "Care of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex." They looked at each other in surprise. Neither had expected personal correspondence from Windsor, especially not addressed to their daughter. The last communication they had received from the royal household had been formal and brief, relating to Harry's military titles and patronages. "She wrote to Lilibet," Meghan said softly, a mixture of emotions flickering across her face. After everything that had happened, the interviews, the accusations, the painful distance between Harry and his family, the Queen had reached out to their daughter. Harry ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Meghan recognized from moments when he was trying to process complex emotions. "Should we?" he began, then stopped, looking at their daughter who was now attempting to stack blocks higher than her head. "We should read it first," Meghan said gently. "We're her parents." Lilibet chose that moment to toddle over to them, clutching a stuffed toy and babbling in the mixture of words and sounds that made perfect sense to her. Harry scooped her up, settling her between them on the couch. "What do you think, little one?" he whispered to his daughter. "Should we see what Gongon has to say?" The nickname slipped out before Harry could stop it, the term he and William had used for the Queen when they were children. Meghan noticed but said nothing, understanding the flood of memories that must be washing over her husband. With careful movements, Meghan opened the envelope and unfolded several pages of cream-colored stationery bearing the Windsor Castle letterhead. As she began to read silently, Harry watched her face change, emotions playing across her features like clouds moving across the sky. Meghan began, then stopped, her voice catching slightly. "Harry, she's writing to Lilibet about Philip. About the gardens. About." She paused, her eyes scanning the pages. "About wanting to know her." Harry leaned closer, reading over Meghan's shoulder. As his eyes moved across his grandmother's familiar handwriting, his expression softened. The formal Queen who had seemed so distant during their final royal engagements was gone, replaced by the loving grandmother he remembered from his childhood. "She mentions Diana," Harry said quietly, his finger tracing a particular passage. "She says Lilibet has her great-grandmother's spirit." Meghan felt tears prick her eyes as she read the Queen's description of the roses in the Windsor Gardens and her promise to show Lilibet the secret passages of the castle someday. It was written with the love of a great-grandmother who ached to know her descendant, not the formal distance of a monarch dealing with family discord. Lilibet, sensing the emotional shift in her parents, looked up at them with wide, curious eyes. She reached for the letter, her small fingers grasping at the papers. "Mama," she said clearly, one of her favorite words. Then, surprising them both, she pointed at the letter and said something that sounded remarkably like Gongon. Harry and Meghan exchanged glances. Lilibet had never met her great-grandmother, had never heard that particular nickname except in the few family videos they had shared privately. Yet somehow, she seemed to sense the importance of what was happening. "She knows," Meghan whispered, not entirely sure what she meant but feeling the truth of it nonetheless. As they continued reading, both Harry and Meghan found themselves thinking about the woman who had written these words. Not the Queen of England, but Elizabeth, a great-grandmother in her 90s who had taken the time to write by hand to a little girl she barely knew but clearly loved. The letter spoke of forgiveness without explicitly mentioning the need for it. It offered love without conditions or demands. It painted a picture of a family connection that transcended the public drama and private pain that had defined recent years. "She wants to know about Lilibet's first words, her favorite foods," Meghan said, reading further. "She asks if she likes music and whether she's started dancing yet." Harry smiled despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "She's asking about normal grandmother things. Just normal questions about her great-granddaughter." The letter concluded with an invitation that was both simple and profound, a request for photographs, perhaps a video call, and the gentle suggestion that distance didn't have to mean disconnection. The Queen had written that she understood if they preferred to keep their privacy but hoped they might consider letting her be part of Lilibet's life in whatever small way they felt comfortable. As the sun completed its descent behind the California hills, Harry and Meghan sat in their living room, holding their daughter and contemplating a letter that might change everything. The Queen had extended an olive branch across an ocean, using the innocent love for a great-grandchild as a bridge over troubled waters. Lilibet had fallen asleep between them, her small hand still clutching the corner of the letter as if she understood its importance. In her peaceful slumber, she looked exactly like the photos Diana's brother had shown Harry of his mother as a child, the same nose, the same stubborn chin, the same sense of serenity that seemed to promise great things ahead. The question now was how to respond to a gesture that felt both surprising and inevitable, formal and intimate, carefully calculated and genuinely heartfelt. The Queen had made the first move in a game that wasn't really a game at all, but rather an attempt to rebuild something precious that had been damaged but perhaps not destroyed. The Queen set down her pen and walked slowly to the window overlooking the castle gardens. The roses were in full bloom, reminding her of Diana's favorite flowers. She remembered how Diana used to play with William and Harry in these very gardens, their laughter echoing through the corridors of the castle. Now, Harry's own daughter was growing up in a different garden, under different skies, speaking her first words in an accent the Queen would barely recognize. The weight of recent years pressed heavily on her shoulders. The interviews, the accusations, the family rifts that seemed to grow wider with each passing month. Yet through it all, she remained what she had always been, a grandmother who loved her family, even when that love was tested by distance and misunderstanding. She returned to her desk and began to write. The words came slowly at first, then, with increasing warmth as she allowed her heart to guide her pen rather than royal protocol. "My dearest Lilibet," she began, using the name that connected them across generations. "I write to you on this beautiful morning, thinking of your bright smile and wondering what new words you might be learning today." The Queen paused, imagining the toddler's curious eyes and infectious giggle. She had seen videos that Harry had shared privately through intermediaries, brief glimpses of a little girl who seemed to have inherited the Spencer spirit and the Windsor determination. "Your great-grandfather Philip would have adored you," she continued writing. "He would have delighted in your curiosity and would have invented silly games to make you laugh, just as he did with your father and uncle when they were small." The mention of Philip brought a gentle smile to the Queen's face. He had been gone for over a year now, but she still felt his presence in moments like these. He would have bridged any gap for the sake of family, especially for a great-grandchild who bore such a significant name. As she wrote, the Queen's mind drifted to memories of Harry as a young boy. She remembered his mischievous grin, his protective nature toward his brother, and, later, his dedication to causes that mattered to him. The Harry she remembered was full of compassion and joy, qualities she hoped little Lilibet was already beginning to show. "I hope you know that you are loved, my dear child," she wrote. "Not just by your parents, who clearly adore you, but by a family you may not see often but who think of you every day." The Queen's lady-in-waiting knocked gently on the door, reminding her of the day's appointments. But the Queen held up a hand, asking for just a few more minutes. This letter was too important to rush. She wrote about the gardens at Windsor, describing the ancient oak trees and the swans on the lake. She told Lilibet about the corgis who still roamed the castle halls, though fewer in number now. She described the changing seasons at the castle and promised that someday, if circumstances allowed, she would love to show Lilibet the secret passages and hidden rooms that had delighted royal children for generations. The letter grew longer as the Queen found herself pouring out feelings she rarely expressed, even to her closest confidants. She wrote about tradition and change, about the importance of family bonds that transcend geography and disagreement. She wrote about forgiveness and hope, and about a great-grandmother's dream that someday, the Atlantic Ocean wouldn't feel quite so wide. When she finally signed her name, the Queen felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. She carefully folded the letter and placed it in an envelope, addressing it in her careful script to Princess Lilibet Diana at the Montecito address she had memorized. But, as she prepared to seal the envelope, the Queen hesitated. Would this letter be welcomed? Would it be seen as an intrusion or as the loving gesture she intended? The complexities of royal protocol and family dynamics suddenly seemed overwhelming. She thought about all the words left unsaid, all the bridges that might still be rebuilt. This letter to her great-grandchild might be small in the grand scheme of royal affairs, but it felt monumentally important to a grandmother who had spent her life balancing duty with love. The Queen sealed the envelope and rang for her private secretary. Whatever happened next, she had taken the first step toward healing a wound that had been troubling her heart for too long. Little Lilibet Diana deserved to know that an ocean away, there was a great-grandmother who loved her and hoped for nothing more than the chance to be part of her life. The letter would travel across continents, carrying with it the hopes and love of one of the world's most famous grandmothers. What happened when it reached its destination would determine whether this gesture of love could begin to heal the fractures that had divided a family known around the world.